You see Fauci yesterday, and I don't think it was a slip of the tongue, because I definitely heard on NPR, but I thought I also saw it on MSNBC, where he said, hey, now that we're getting it, we get up to 90% or whatever, we can have our hands around this, our arms around this plague by the fall of 2022. And of course, the politicians blew up, the Democrats blew up, and he walked it back on Anderson Cooper last night. My point. There's been so much information put out there that has just been inaccurate, to the point about the other jabs, which got Dave Rubin taken down off of Twitter, would have gotten us canceled off of YouTube. Mm-hmm. That turns out to be the correct thing 60 days later. There's so much in a complicated topic. So much is being important, given to the American people, that turns out to be just not accurate, right? And they're naturally inclined to say, hey, prove it to me.
Let me pull up this story we have from Timcast.com. 2 years to slow the spread. Fauci hopes to have COVID under control by spring of 2022. In an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper, Fauci came out and said he misspoke when he said fall, and he really meant spring. And you know what? If it was a mistake, okay, that's fine. Sorry, I get it, Fauci. Yeah, you made a mistake. Here's the problem.
Do you buy that?
It doesn't matter if I do.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. First of all, I trust and distrust of CNN and Fauci. Here's the real issue. Fauci could be the nicest guy in the world. Fauci could be, he comes over for dinner and he brings a casserole with him and you're like, oh, you didn't have to do that, Fauci. Thanks so much. But he's been wrong too much. It's not about whether I like him or think of him as a bad person or prescribe malintent. It's that he has flip-flopped on so much. Yeah. And so here's the big problem. There's no anchor. I mean, literally like an anchor in the ground for people to understand their reality.
Yes.
So when the news comes out on Thursday and says by fall of 2022, and then the news comes out on Friday by spring of 2022, and then you go and talk to mom, dad, brother, sister, relative, and they're saying, we all got to do this, otherwise we're going to be locked down until fall of 2022. And you say, no, CNN said it was spring of 2022. What are you talking about? And then you're both showing each other articles from within 10 hours of each other, contradicting each other because Fauci doesn't know what he's talking about. I see this a lot on Facebook. Someone will post a story and it'll say some fact or guidance. And I'm like, that story's from a day ago. It's already been contradicted. But they don't want to hear it because they're like, look, I read the news. This is a new story. It's from 12 hours ago saying this thing is true. And then I'm like, yes, but he came out again and said this. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So now you have people clashing into each other, arguing over what is or isn't, and getting banned for it. The funny thing about Dave Rubin getting suspended on Twitter for saying that booster shots were coming was that he was when he got finally released from Twitter jail, he's like, here are the articles I was reading. And they said, are booster shots on the way? Booster shots may be coming soon. And now where are we at? The FDA says, and I want to make sure I pull this up because YouTube is a fickle beast. They say, the vaccine also continues to be available under emergency use authorization, including for individuals 12 through 15 years of age, and for the administration of a third dose in certain immunocompromised individuals. You know what they didn't say? A third dose for all individuals. Mm-hmm. So when they're talking about booster shots for everybody, that's not in the FDA's letter for even emergency use authorization. They only are referencing certain immunocompromised individuals. Now, when the New York Times comes out and says FDA is recommending a booster shot after 8 months, but the FDA comes out and doesn't say that,
yep.
What am I supposed to base my understanding off of?
Yep.
I want to just clarify this. These boosters, Moderna, Pfizer, go so on, so forth, and booster shots, all for the alpha variant, for the original COVID variant.
Alpha and beta, I guess.
Alpha and beta, which are no longer the problem. What we're looking at right now is a mutated version, assuming it's going to mutate again and again and again and again. So these vaccines are not for the Delta variant, which is the current mutative strand, right?
So a lot of the stories have just said the vaccine, retains a certain amount of efficacy for the Delta variant.
That's a weak way of saying it's not the right vaccine.
It's yes.
Okay.
Right. So I'm trying to use my words carefully,
right?
Because for the nuance, they're saying it works. It wasn't designed specifically targeting this variant.
That's so important, and for them not to be shining a spotlight on that is like so dishonest.
This is okay. So the right after I was here, 4 or 5, 6 weeks ago, the Surgeon General of the United States came out with this big report and said, and attached to this report said, the Surgeon General went to the White House. Number one public health issue we have right now, right? Not even COVID, it's misinformation. Remember that? It's misinformation. Mm-hmm. That's now a public health crisis. misinformation. And they listed, Bobby Kennedy and Dr. McCullough and other people, all because of the internet. I think one of the reasons that Fauci has so imploded in people, and not just integrity, but people with authority, people really listening to him, is that shows like this, like WarRoom and others, get so much into the details of these things. People just don't want to watch general political TV anymore, I don't think. They're really thirsting for answers and for experts and for data and information to make up their own mind, not to be told, but like in the movies, show, don't tell. Right, they want to see access to information. So when Fauci goes on CNN and MSNBC and speaks in these general, big picture phraseology, and then it changes and the goalposts change. First, you got herd immunity of 70% from people who've had it. Next thing you know, herd immunity is 90%. You got to be vaccinated. Right? People get naturally, because I think we're in a time, and you see this in the apes. People are crowdsourcing knowledge all the time. Right now, they're going to say, you have to be a trusted source for that information.
Just to clarify, the apes is a reference to the stocks.
To the GameStop, the ape nation. It's like 4 million individuals, and they're teaching themselves how to trade stocks, or they're having people come in and they crowdsource. They're becoming experts, or not experts. They're becoming proficient in understanding finance and economics and the trading of stocks as they teach themselves. I think you're seeing it across the board in many, many different areas. Look at the people, just two examples, and this is populism. Look at what people know about vaccines and pandemics today that 18 months ago would never know. Right. Look at critical race theory. I know so many mothers who were, let's say this, not exactly A students and were partying in college, people I know my age, maybe some relatives, maybe a sister of mine, that are experts in Herbert Marcuse. No, but they know critical race theory like Andrew Breitbart knew it. I mean, they've gone through and studied. They've gone to the source material. We had a woman on last night from North Carolina. They can give you chapter and verse. They never heard of critical race theory. Derek Bell, 6 months ago. Right. But for crowdsourcing and getting knowledge, they're going up a learning curve. You're seeing this in every different area around. And I think people, they want, if you're going to be managed by experts, the experts, I think, have to come out and really lay out things in a very definitive way. That's
a good point. I mean, we're seeing more and more people start to do research they never would have done in the past. The way this is interesting. We'll talk a little bit about Bill Maher in a second, but I was thinking about Bill Maher's show because of the news about him rejecting booster shots. And I'm like, the problem with Bill Maher is he doesn't actually read into the news. He just watches the TV and then bases his opinions off of what he sees on TV. And you know what? That probably worked when Bill Maher was younger, and that's how he got to where he is today. The news used to be only a handful of channels. So when he's coming up into prominence, there's a handful of channels you can watch where you could get distilled information. He does his political commentary based on this. The information he was presenting was probably wrong or misleading, but we didn't have crowd research. Now, 2021, Bill Maher comes on his show. He gets the Covington kids wrong, right? He gets a lot of these things wrong, and he doesn't understand, but you can see that he's clearly on the side of liberty, or more so on the side of that.
I think he's kind of red-pilled.
You think he's red-pilled?
Yeah. Let me tell you.
But there's...
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. Just,
go ahead.
You're right, but he's like 1%. He's missing so much context and information.
First up, his show, I think, is one of the best produced shows. I've had a chance to be on there a couple of times and twice up front. His show is one of the best produced. The staff does an amazing job of the detail. Remember, he is a stand-up comedian at the end of the day and very quick-witted. So I find his stuff actually be pretty piercing as far as getting to the point. Let me tell you a story about the pandemic. So they called me up to come out in fact, in January, right when the pandemic started, to come out and talk about the primaries.
On Bill Maher?
On Bill Maher, yeah. And the front of the show, when you come out to this thing. It's like the second time I'd done the panel years ago about Sarah Palin. But I said, I'm only going to do it if we talk about the pandemic. I've shifted my podcast from impeachment to pandemic. This is the end of the world. It's going to change the world as we know it. You have to understand it. And they go, fine. I fly out there, and staff's terrific. They come to me and they say, look, here's the deal. Bill loves you. It's going to be a great session up front, but he wants to talk about the primaries, wants to talk about Bernie. You can't mention the pandemic. I go, whoa. And the producers say, hey, all we do is follow it, and we're watching your show because it was the early stages. I said, no. I said, this is going to change the arc. It's going to change the election, right? And they said, no, we can't do that. What he'll do in the introduction, he'll introduce you as the host of the new podcast, WarRoom Pandemic. But then he wants to talk about politics. although the staff and these guys, and he just made a decision, and it was quite frankly, to your point, it was a miss. His staff was very much saying, hey, we want to do the pandemic. He made a decision, hey, this pandemic thing sounds like the flu from China. I want to talk about Hillary, and I want to talk about Bloomberg, and I want to talk about those things are current. However, I think this is why, particularly in the Trump movement, the populist nationalism, I think Bill Maher is someone every week on woke culture. You're seeing what I call old lions like that, who come from a more of a although they're progressive, they come from a libertarian base, right? A libertarian perspective that are at the vanguard of countering and throwing off wokeness.
I appreciate him. I think it's good. There's a lot of people, he had Ben Shapiro on recently. Yeah. You see the Ben Shapiro, Malcolm Nance thing.
Yeah.
And wow, when I watched that, you really understand how
you're outmatched. I mean, Ben Shapiro versus Malcolm Nance. That's not a fair. That's outmatched.
Not just that, but like I didn't even.
And he's Senior Chief Petty Officer Nance is a good man. I don't agree with his plot, but he's outmatched by Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, a little bit.
Even with Nance not there, I was really impressed with Ben Shapiro. He's fast. He's knowledgeable. Look. Bill Maher is outclassed by Ben Shapiro.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
So I'm watching that. I'm like, wow, this is why Ben is like one of the biggest podcasters and one of the biggest personalities in this. And, but what you end up seeing with this is that Bill Maher, he should have known a lot more than he did. And so what happens in these debates with you have Malcolm Nance, you have Ben Shapiro, and again, Ben Shapiro outclassed both of them in my opinion. Bill Maher hears one of these like left progressive people say something and I'll say, oh, I understand that. Okay, and I'll agree with that. And it's like, Bill, if you actually read the story, you'd know that they were wrong. So I get accused of being right wing simply because I actually fact check things. And a good example, well, I don't want to get too much into but when you see the news come out,
I think we'll call you right wing for more than that, but that's okay.
No, I mean that's the main, that's it.
Oh, because when you fact check, they come back and say you're a right winger.
Yes.
When you have a fact.
So if I say something like
versus an emotion,
I'll say something like Afghanistan is, the general idea I said is there's a lot of people who want to pass the blame for what's happening in Afghanistan. The Democrats want to blame Trump. The Trump supporters will blame Biden. Ultimately, I think full responsibility to a great degree is George W. Bush for starting the war in the first place, Obama for escalating and keeping us there. But I think it is factually
the nation
inaccurate.
Building, not the war.
Yes, nation building. I think it is factually inaccurate to say that it is Trump's fault for what's happening in Afghanistan because
ridiculous.
It's not his plan.
It's ridiculous.
He negotiated a peace deal. It's not being followed through, and Trump has no leadership over the current situation. So it is factually inaccurate to say that Trump.
Yes.
But what happens then is they say, Tim's defending Trump. And I'm like, in the sense that he's not the president right now and he has no control over what's going on. But then they'll call me conservative because a fact will happen. I'll give you an example. I know everybody who's listening, they're going to be like, here he goes, the economy again. Do you think the economy is good or bad right now?
I think the economy for working class people is terrible. Inflation's out of control. You're getting crushed every day. It's awful.
Independent voters and Republicans would agree with you. But Democrats overwhelmingly think the economy is good right now.
Because they bought into it hard. They're not giving you the truth. You saw the polling today on USA Today. Forget the Democrats so overweight to Biden right now because they're still hanging on because he's an orange man bad. It's orange man bad. 32%, only 32% of independents support Biden. Biden's presidency is over. The regime is over. It's now time to cauterize this and to make sure it can't do any more damage, permanent damage to the American people and to our republic. And that's what's happening right now with the what they're doing, the passing these bills. They just had the vote today, the $6 trillion they want to add. This regime is over, and here's why. Look at this poll from USA Today. Suffolk, which is a center-left or left-wing polling group. It's not WarRoom, and it's not the Tim Poll show, right? It is 32% of independents support approval of Biden. Biden went from a plus 20% on the day of his inauguration, a plus 20 approval to a net negative 14. There's never been a drop this quickly in the presidency ever by anybody. This is an implosion, and there's no bottom to this guy. There's no floor. This guy could get to the high 20s. He just announced, look, he sent a CIA director over to Afghanistan to be lectured by the Taliban. And look, I'm a big guy about...
And the CIA?
The head of CIA is going to fly over to have a meeting to be told, you guys are leaving and getting out of here. And now, tonight, he just announced, we're starting to withdraw because it takes a while to get the apparatus out. The apparatus is starting to be moved out. And right now, I think Daily Mail reported there's hundreds of Americans have been evacuated, just hundreds.
And there's 15,000 estimated.
From what we know, we don't know. Nobody's given us a firm. And I understand you might not have it down to the fifth decimal place, but can we know if it's 5, 10, or 15,000? Are they in Kabul? Are they throughout the country? And what's going on? Look, American citizenship have some value. You shouldn't just be left behind like trash, right? And this is why this is a presidency that's imploding right now. And nobody can sit there and look at these inflation numbers. Working class people, the inflation's it's not transitory. It's because of the way we're financing this. It's out of control. The wealthy are going to get wealthier. Your audience, particularly under 35, I told you before, you're going to be Russian serfs. Now you're going to be impoverished Russian serfs, okay? This is just the math.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.